everyone. Welcome to Chapter 14 lecture, Evaluation Approaches and Designs. All right, today we're getting into evaluation, which is where we finally get to answer the question of, did this program actually do something useful, or did we just spend a lot of time and resources hoping for the best? As you will see, evaluation is not just one thing. It's a whole system of approaches and designs that help us figure out what worked, what didn't, and why. So by the end of this talk, you should be able to explain the difference between formative and summative evaluation, understand how those connect to process, impact, and outcome evaluations, and identify qualitative data methods used early in programs. Think of this as a timeline. Formative happens before and during, process happens during, and summative happens after. And then we'll also explore the difference between experimental, control, and comparison groups. And we'll talk about internal and external validity. Translation, we're going to talk about how confident you are that you can be that your program will actually cause the change you hope and you didn't just get lucky. So here's your foundation. Approaches are the different types of evaluation. Designs are how you structure that evaluation. You can think of them like this. Approaches are what you're trying to learn, and designs are how are you going to prove it. Formative evaluation focuses on program quality and development. This happens before and early in program implementation. Think, are we even building the right thing? How do you know? Formative evaluation helps you gather feedback, make improvements, adjust before it's too late, because fixing something early is a whole lot easier than explaining later why your program didn't work. These are all elements of formative evaluation. You do not need to memorize this list, but notice the themes. Stakeholder support, resources, inclusion, and feedback. Good programs don't just exist. They are intentionally built and refined over time. Here we're talking about justification, resources, cost, benefit, and cost effectiveness. A key distinction you might want to understand is that cost benefit is asking, is it worth it overall? And cost effectiveness is asking if it's worth it compared to other alternatives. Multiplicity and support. Programs often need multiple strategies and reinforcement to be successful. One flyer is not going to change behavior. We've all seen the one flyer. It's good, but it's not great, and it's certainly not motivating me by itself to make a change. Now, let's talk about implementation. This is where we ask, are we reaching people? Are they engaged? And are they satisfied? If people don't show up or participate, your program cannot work. Full stop. Process evaluation looks at what happened during implementation. It asks, did we follow the plan? And did we reach the right people? 3 key ideas are important to consider here. Fidelity, or did we do what we said we would? Dose, or how much did people actually receive? And context, what else was happening that may influence my success with this program? And there's something else to consider. Sometimes a program fails, but in reality, it might be that it was never implemented correctly in the first place. Most qualitative methods include focus groups, surveys, and interviews. Why? Well, because early on, you want to understand your community's perceptions, experiences, and barriers, not just numbers. Pre-testing is basically testing out the different pieces of a program, while pilot testing is testing the entire program on one small group. Think of it this way. A pre-test is a small, tasteful test. And a pilot is a full meal, but it's just not offered to everyone yet. Next, summative evaluation answers, did the program work? There are two types. One might be impact, where we might see behavior and knowledge changes, and outcome, where we should see changes in long-term health outcomes. Impact, shorter-term changes like changes in behavior, knowledge, and attitudes. Outcome is where we see the big picture in morbidity rates and mortality rates. You can think of the impact as the leading indicators, and the outcomes are the final results. Outcome evaluation includes confounding variables, meaning other stuff is always happening, and your program does not get to take credit for everything. Choosing a study or program design depends on many factors like time, money, and feasibility. The perfect design often does not exist in the real-world public health practice, but we can try by doing all of these things, right? Maybe. There are different types of groups involved in our designs. Experimental groups get the intervention. Control groups are randomized and don't always get the intervention. And comparison groups are definitely not randomized. Each design type shows something slightly different and slightly better. Experimental is one of the strongest designs and produces results that are the gold standard in research. Quasi are realistic compromises. Non-experimental are descriptive in nature and basically tells people that we're observing things and trying our best. This flowchart helps you decide your design. The key takeaway here is that randomization is what separates experimental from everything else. It's important to know that sometimes randomization is not possible because it could be unethical, impractical, or people just don't agree. Humans are often inconvenient like that. These are examples of pre-test and post-test and time series designs. The key takeaway from this slide is that multiple measurements strengthen your conclusions. Here is an example of the Solomon 4-group design. Yes, it looks complicated because it is. But it also helps control for the effect of taking a pretest itself. Internal validity asks, did the intervention cause the change? There are threats to validity, and those can include things like the Hawthorne effect, placebo effect, and social desirability. Oh yeah, and there's more threats like maturation, attrition, and selection bias. The point here is that if validity is weak, your conclusions are questionable, no matter how nice and pretty your data looks. External validity asks the question of whether or not we can generalize our findings. You can improve validity by replication and blinding. And something else to think about with this, just because that program worked over there, you know that one, it doesn't mean that if we implement it over here, it will work the same. As we wrap up this lecture, consider some of these takeaways. Choose your evaluation approach early. Match your designs to your goals and protect your validity. Because at the end of the day, if you cannot confidently say this program worked and here's why, then you don't actually know if it did.